In this tutorial, I'm going to go over how to do a tailstop 360 finger flip. It is when you stop in your tail, on your tail, tailstop, and then you grab the board with your back hand. The nose is up in the air, and you fling the board around. I'll do one real quick right now. The first part of this trick is the tailstop, which is essentially a manual gone too far, where the tail of your board hits the ground and the nose is in the air. The front two wheels are off the ground. Then you grab the nose with your back hand, which is my right hand since I'm regular, and then I jump, and as I jump in the air, I take my right hand, grab the board, and twist it in a 360 flip motion, letting it flip and then jumping and landing back on it when it is done with the rotation. Some tricks that are good to know before you do this are a regular tailstop finger flip and a tailstop varial flip. Those will help you, and those are pretty essential for learning the tailstop 360 finger flip. I think I did a tailstop finger flip video already, so I'll link to that in the video description. The tailstop varial flip is kind of the same thing as the 360 flip, except it requires less time in the air and less strength in your wrist to flip the board. When you're learning this trick, it's helpful to bring both feet onto the tail. The further your front foot is to the tail, the easier this trick tends to be. Then you are going to grab with your right hand, and as you jump, or before you even jump, you really need to make sure your shoulders are in line with the board. If your shoulders are too far forward, the board is going to you're going to end up in front of the board. So by keeping your shoulders back and over the board, you'll stay over the board throughout the duration of the trick. You may want to play around with the position of your shoulders with the board in terms of whether or not they're parallel with the board and where they're positioned in that regard. So I tend to have my shoulders a little bit more open. It's one of the few tricks that I don't have my shoulders parallel with the board. Another thing to work on is just getting the flip without jumping. So just practice flinging your board in the 360 finger flip motion, just so you get an idea of what that feels like and kind of developing that wrist strength to be able to make the board flip with relatively little effort. I've also seen some skaters do this where they don't even have their front foot on the board, so you can try doing it one-footed too if that helps. The further back your weight is, the further back your weight is on the board, the easier it typically is to get out of the way of the board, to jump up in the air and fling the board around. Once you start getting the varial flips more consistently, then you can start doing the 360 finger flips, making the board go that extra 180 degrees for the full 360. As far as tips go for learning this and common problems, I think for me some of the most common issues were getting the board to flip fully around first, and the way you work on that is practice with varial flips first. Just work on the 180 degree rotation, and then once you get that consistently, start trying to get it 360 degrees around. You can also try throwing the board more vertically rather than sideways. That may help it flip differently, or if you're throwing kind of vertically, try and throw it more sideways. Those are two things you can do to help with this. The other thing you can do, so some other issues that you might have is if you land too far forward. In that case, you have your shoulders a little too far forward, so bring your shoulders a little further back. And it's really important to not lean too far forward with this trick because the board tends to kind of pop up and you're bringing it very close to your face, and you don't want to have the board hit you in the face, and so Keep a straight back. Do not hunch over much with this trick. It's going to be tempting to because you're going to want to bend over to grab the board, but resist that and keep a straight back like you're doing a squat, and keep your shoulders over the board at all times. And keep looking at my board like it's going to give me an answer to what else I'm going to add. But I think that's really it for this trick. It is definitely one that you'll feel like you can't do and feel impossible at first, and the more you practice it, it's almost, for me, I think it was even more, it wasn't even gradual, it was more like one day I just was able to spin it all the way around. So strength is a big part of this trick too, and really working on developing your wrist strength to be able to do this. So once you start being able to do it, it's super fun. It's a nice little trick to throw in a line, especially if you lose speed towards the end of your line. It's a nice way to transition to some stationary tricks, or to transition out of stationary, because when you throw the board like that and land back on it, you can redirect your momentum and then start rolling again if you've been stationary. I hope this trick has been helpful. This is something you can do on a longboard. It is harder on a longboard, but it is possible to do on longboards, and it's simple, fun. It's a great way to practice jumping on your board and getting more comfortable with flip tricks without having maybe the feet coordination of doing like a true 360 flip. So enjoy, be safe, and have fun.